Welcome to the 2026 Detroit Housing Alliance Conference. Please welcome to the stage the CEO of Greatwater Homes, Matt Temkin.
Let's see if this works. All right, it does. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. And thanks to everyone who put in so much work to make this happen. All the speakers, the organizers, everyone. Thank you so much. I have to tell you, I'm really excited to be here. I was introduced as the CEO of Greatwater Homes, which is a pretty cool title, and I'm really proud of that. We're building beautiful homes for sale here in Detroit. Come check them out anytime. People really seem to love them. I know I do. I think they're the best new homes in the country, and they're right here in Detroit. So I'm over there every day, ready to meet anybody, anytime, to show them to them. Building homes for sale is a relatively new thing for us, though. It's just a couple years old. It grew out of what we started long ago, renovating historic apartment buildings in Detroit. I love these old buildings. I really do. They're so pretty and basically impossible to replicate, and they house a lot of people. That's why we set out to try to save them. For the last decade, we have provided apartment housing in these historic buildings to thousands of Detroiters. Most of our residents make around $20 an hour. Some make more, some make less, but most are around there. Providing this housing has always been hard, but lately it has started to look impossible, and that makes me very worried. Over the last few years, I've shared those concerns with pretty much anyone who would listen. Somewhere along the way, I realized that I was having trouble getting through to people. At first, I thought I wasn't explaining things well, and then I realized it's because I'm a landlord. Everyone hates landlords. It sounds like such a bad word, landlord. Ugh. Nobody wants to hear from us. Unfortunately, though, this landlord right here in front of you has a front row seat to what looks like a pretty scary scene unfolding in Detroit. There is one word that is on my mind all the time these days. It's not profitability, it's viability. Profitability means rent exceeds expenses. Profitability means a property earns at least one more dollar than it costs to run. Viability, on the other hand, means rent at least equals expenses. In other words, viability means a property can at least pay its bills. It can pay its staff, it can pay its taxes, it can pay for its insurance, it can pay its mortgage, it can afford to replace a roof if needed, it can afford to replace a boiler if needed. Forget being profitable, most housing in Detroit can't even pay its bills right now. Unfortunately, if Detroit housing doesn't become viable again soon, it's going away. And let me show you what I mean. Raise your hand if you care about housing in Detroit. Hopefully everybody's hand is up. If you don't, I think you're at the wrong conference. So all of us care a lot about housing in Detroit. Now, let me ask you something. Could you spend all day working on housing if you weren't getting paid to do it? I know I couldn't, and pretty much nobody could. And importantly, it doesn't matter what kind of housing we're talking about. Subsidized housing is run by humans too. Subsidized housing might not need to make a profit, but it still needs to be viable. Someone has to clean the hallways and cut the grass and respond to emergency calls in the middle of the night. When a property isn't viable, those things start slipping. Properties in Detroit, unfortunately, haven't been viable for several years now. It's visible all around us. There's a belief in Detroit that people aren't paying their rent because their properties look bad. In fact, it's a little bit more complicated and kind of the opposite. Properties look bad because people aren't paying their rent. If your housing looks worse than it used to, it's probably not making enough money to cover its expenses anymore. Go and check out apartment communities in Birmingham. They look really nice because rents are high and people are paying. There's also another odd belief in Detroit that if housing is bad enough, it should be free. That's wrong. If housing is bad enough, people shouldn't live there. We all want Detroiters to have access to safe, quality housing, right? So let me ask a simple question. If that's what we want, are housing conditions getting better, or are they getting worse? We might disagree about the causes, but we can't ignore the reality. If your boat is taking on water, it's no use arguing about whose fault it is. You need to figure out why water is getting in. Because only once you understand why do you at least stand a chance of plugging the leak. Last fall, the boiler failed at one of our buildings and we couldn't replace it. It wasn't because we didn't want to, it was because we couldn't afford to. After years of operating deficits, we simply didn't have the money. We had already personally loaned the property all we had. So we had to move everyone out. That wasn't fun for anyone, least of all the residents. Thank God we were able to move most of them into housing we owned up the street. Once everyone was out, we tried to sell the building. We weren't trying to make a profit. We weren't even trying to get our money back. We were just trying to sell it to pay off the lender, and we couldn't because it wasn't viable. The economics were already bad for us. For a new owner, they're even worse. Our property taxes are $15,000 a year. For a new owner, they'll be $90,000 a year. Our interest rate on our loan is 3%. For a new owner, it'll be 6%. It's not viable, so it's going away. Those aren't just financial consequences. Those are homes Detroit may never get back. This is just one building, but the pattern is playing out all over Detroit. Operating deficits become deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance becomes distress. Distress becomes foreclosure, and foreclosure becomes housing loss. Viability doesn't care about politics, and it doesn't care who owns the building. A building either works or it doesn't. A boiler either works or it doesn't. Families either have housing or they don't. The good news is that the story doesn't have to end this way. Detroit has always been a city of builders. We built cars, we built factories, we built homes, we built neighborhoods. At one point, Detroit had roughly 500,000 homes. Today, we have around 300,000. That means we've lost about 40% of our housing stock. To avoid losing more, we're going to need to build something else: trust. To do that, we need to move away from the adversarial model that has dominated housing policy in Detroit. Why is the relationship between a landlord and a tenant presumed to be adversarial? In what other business is the relationship between proprietor and customer presumed to be adversarial? Our residents are our customers. They want the same thing we do: quality housing that is likely to be there tomorrow. Housing policy should be based on those shared goals, not some imagined fight. That's my perspective anyway. And there are many others' perspectives in this room. Tenant advocates see things I don't see. Lenders see things I don't see. Researchers see things I don't see. Government sees things I don't see. And that's the whole idea behind the Detroit Housing Alliance. Nobody should leave their perspective at the door. Bring it into the room. Bring your experience. Bring your data. Bring your disagreements. But let's all commit to beginning with the same question: what is actually going on with housing in Detroit? Because if we can't all agree on the reality, we'll never build good housing policy. The Detroit Housing Alliance isn't pro-landlord or pro-tenant or pro-developer or pro-lender. It's pro-housing, and it's focused exclusively on Detroit, because we only have so many lessons to learn from places like New York. If someone asks years from now why the Detroit Housing Alliance was created, I hope the answer is that we cared enough about Detroit housing to sit down together, listen to one another, and begin with the truth. Only by working together can we shape policies that are grounded in our shared reality and designed to increase access to housing for Detroiters. The good news is that I know we could figure all this out, because Detroiters are counting on us to do exactly that. So thanks again for coming, and let's get to work.